Thank you so much for making time for me.
Sure.
It was unexpected, but you made it. It is an honor for me.
Well, I'm delighted to help out in any way we can.
Can I also ask you about the latest appointment of Chief of Defense?
Um, I don't know much about that individual.
Mm-hmm.
It's normal for a government at this point in its mandate to be looking at renewal. You know, you have people who are leaving government. That also happens quite a bit at the end of a parliamentary session.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in that particular case, the question that many journalists will have is whether this is somehow connected to the story that was in the Globe and Mail on Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
which is that the former Minister of Defense uh, ordered or directed or suggested that Afghan Sikhs be evacuated from Afghanistan when Western governments pulled out of Afghanistan.
Yep.
And I think it's obviously problematic for the former minister,
Mm-hmm.
but I suspect it's going to be problematic as well for some of the military leaders there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good question. What is it connected to? It might be normal. It might be something that happened because of recent events.
Okay. But it means though Sajan was released in a statement, he said that if I did not wear a turban, I would not be questioned for this one. So
Yeah.
is it a legitimate answer for that particular thing? Because he was just forcing, like it means, yeah, forcing to those troops to rescue those Sikhs in a
Yeah.
Sikh community instead of like Canadian citizens.
Yeah. Well, that's anybody, Um, obviously every nation, when Afghanistan, when we were pulling out, when the Americans were pulling out and so on,
Yeah.
there were people who were left behind.
Yes.
And the focus has been largely on translators and people
Mm-hmm.
who assisted the Canadian military.
Yep.
Um, and, tragically, some people who were promised that they would be,
Mm-hmm.
evacuated were not.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them may have lost their lives because of it. And so that's the question. The former minister is lucky that the House of Commons is not sitting,
Mm-hmm.
because if it were, it would be a question every single day,
Yeah.
which is, does the government know if anybody died? Did
Mm-hmm.
anybody die because of this decision? And, I think everybody would be concerned about that, not just like the Sikh community would be concerned about that,
Mm-hmm.
that people were left behind.
Yeah.
So we need, as citizens, we need to find out what the truth is.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Uh, if may I ask you about the latest appointment of Lieutenant General Jennie uh, Carignan? She has been appointed new chief of staff. She will take the charge on
Mm-hmm.
July 18th. So,
Yeah, well, like you say, is it connected to this recent event?
mhm,
Is it connected to just, normal turnover? I
mhm,
think this government, would probably wanted to celebrate the appointment,
mhm.
because I don't know, you can tell me, I don't think there's too many women who becomes chief of defense staff. That
Yep.
doesn't happen very often. So that's a good thing.
Mhm,
The armed forces is men and women
mhm.
in Canada. The question is, was that the motivation, or was the motivation to move somebody out of the way?
Yep.
So, we need to find out.
Mhm. But I also need to know, like we have seen since the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau took office, he has been promoting diversity and gender
Mm,
equity. Like he appointed his first cabinet gender balance like 15-15,
mm-hmm,
or 50-50, I would say. Uh,
mm-hmm,
but we have seen, so he played the great role for it means diversity. He always say diversity is the source of strength.
mm-hmm.
He appointed Governor General So
Payette, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so they did not like waited one,
Hmm.
then she was removed. Then our
Hmm.
latest governor general was appointed, but she is not bilingual,
Hmm.
but she is the first like indigenous need
Hmm.
to be appointed on this top role. But
Hmm.
when it comes to, and it means I need to know what she appointed based on her merit,
Yeah,
or
exactly. My view philosophically,
mm,
Lyndon Baines Johnson, the former president of the United States,
yeah.
when he was defending the civil rights changes to US law that basically enshrined affirmative action,
Mhm.
he had a famous statement to the effect that when other people have been running the race for a long time and have a head start, it's fair to give the people who have been excluded from the race a bit of a lift. And I generally agree with that.
Mhm.
The but the point that you make is exactly the right point. You have to make sure you're appointing the right people. In the case of Payette, um, there was a history there.
Mhm.
She had run-ins with legal authorities, police in the United States twice, and I can't believe that they didn't know about that.
Yeah.
That's a big red flag. That's a
Mhm.
problem. In the case of Mary Simon, I don't know a lot about her career before.
Mhm.
I do know, however, now she has been spending money like it's water.
Yeah.
And so, what I would be interested in as a journalist is looking at her history before she became governor general to see if there was red flags there.
Mhm.
So the point that you make is essential. These are positions of power and authority
Yeah.
and great influence.
Mhm.
And it is critically important if these institutions are to remain legitimate, it's critically important that you appoint people who, are of the best character and the best integrity and morality and ethics.
Mhm.
And I know that nobody's perfect,
Yes.
but you know, we need to know that we're doing our absolute utmost to have the right people appointed.
Mhm.
And in the case, certainly of Payette,
Mhm.
the government of Canada did not do that.
Yeah. You are absolutely right. Okay. So what I need to know, like now let's jump to the by-election. Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you
Yeah.
you you are I'm pretty sure watching it very closely as a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you, when you woke up in the morning, were you shocked or surprised with the
Well,
result?
I was watching the hockey game and looking at the results at the same time. I was
Yeah.
jumping back and forth, and the Oilers were losing, which made me
Mhm.
sad,
Yeah.
and the Liberals were losing, which made me surprised.
Yes.
I had thought, it's not St. Paul's is not it hasn't been liberal forever.
Hmm.
There was a period, almost 30 years ago when Barbara McDougall
Yeah.
won it for the Conservative Party, and
Hmm.
she won it a few times.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty safe liberal riding. That's
Yes.
why they parachuted Leslie Church in there. I've
Mhm.
known Leslie for more than a decade.
Yeah.
She has no connection to that riding.
Yes.
Um, but she had the prime minister and half of cabinet supporting her, and she had the history. The history is, she should have won. She
Yes.
should have won.
Yep.
But they, early on, Sammy, they started to bus people in from Ottawa, staff to help out. They
Mm-hmm.
had, so, they put a lot into it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing, very rarely, as geopolitical events don't intrude on by-elections.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Very rare. And I think, because the population of St. Paul's is about 16% Jewish,
Yes.
and the Jewish community in Canada historically always has voted Liberal,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been drifting away over recent years.
Yep.
But I can tell you, because I work with a lot of Jewish groups, they've been very mad at Trudeau. And because of they feel that he has been insufficiently supportive of Israel, but mainly because they don't feel he's devoted enough resources to fighting anti-Semitism in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Muslim community feels that way too.
Yep.
So The Jewish community, so the turnout, Sammy, was very high for a
Yes.
by-election. It was nearly 40%.
Yep.
Some by-elections recently, as you know, are half that. And, people just don't participate.
Yeah.
So I suspect that doubled turnout vote had a lot to do with Jewish voters because of that large Jewish population.
Yeah.
And they made the difference. And I think Polyev knew it because he had sent a letter around to Jewish voters in that riding that week.
Yeah.
And that was hint number one to me. Hint number two was Trudeau and his government finally designating the IRGC as a terrorist entity.
Yeah.
And that, that had been the subject of lobbying for many years, unsuccessfully. And then all of a sudden during a by-election, they decide, they're terrorists.
Yes.
I think that was because they were anxious about what the Jewish vote was about to do.
Yeah.
But it was too late. And perhaps it looks cynical to people.
Yeah.
And so as a consequence, they lost. So anyway, that's a long-winded answer to a short question, but I think it places Trudeau in even more peril. I've talked to many Liberals since the by-election vote was taking place.
Yeah.
And the ones who wanted him gone before want him gone even more. And the ones who were kind of on the fence, maybe we can win with him, maybe this, maybe that, they're not thinking that anymore. I've heard from Liberals across the country saying enough is enough.
Yeah.
If we're losing a riding like that, like Sammy, if they're losing a riding like that, there's really no safe Liberal seat in all of Canada.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thank you so much. But right now they're being like, it means the top ministers are not calling him out directly, like you need to go out.
Yeah.
Let a new face to him. But there was a report you read about Justin Ling. He also wrote about, environment minister was saying he must go and somebody else it means replace him, and there has been like a couple of MPs are calling him to it means he should resign. There should be a leadership race or leadership review. And also like 9 MPs also wrote to him there should be a caucus meeting, but it seems like he's just defending that debate and staying on. But how do you see it? Do you think he will go or he will stay on to fight?
Well, let me give you a historical answer, a historical part of my answer.
Yep.
I was Mr. Chrétien, Jean Chrétien's special assistant.
Yep.
And I went through something like this with him.
Yeah.
And, there was a leadership revolt ultimately against him.
Yeah.
He ended up staying longer as a result. They didn't drive him out. He wasn't even planning on running for a third term. But, the disrespect that they showed him changed his mind. And I know that because I talked to him regularly and I was talking to him throughout that period.
Yeah.
But when it starts, this stuff, when they start going after a sitting prime minister or an opposition leader, Aaron O'Toole or Andrew Scheer, it's like being nibbled to death by 1,000 ducks over and over and over. So no single thing is fatal, but, as a multiplicity, as when you add them all together, they start to get fatal. So in this week, we've seen Percy Down, Liberal senator, who was Chrétien's chief of staff, call for his resignation. We've seen this MP from Atlantic Canada. We've seen John Manley. We've seen people like that. The one that surprised me, the one that isn't either a minor name or an old name, was Catherine McKenna. Catherine McKenna was a very big Trudeau supporter. She's a Trudeau minister. She is openly calling for him to go. And that to me was a surprise. So I think he's fooling himself if he thinks he can weather this storm. I've been through it. It always starts little. And then it's like any kind of storm. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until, you can't ignore it.
Yep.
And, in Chrétien's case, he had 60% popularity with voters when it was happening.
Yeah.
Less popularity with the Liberal caucus. But we still had to take it seriously, and we had a popular prime minister. In this case, he's got the beginning of a caucus revolt, and he's got some ministers refusing to clearly, support his leadership. And he's a very unpopular prime minister. He's within 3 points of what the Conservatives were at in 1993 when we beat them and reduced them to 2 seats.
Yeah.
That's something, if you're an MP who wants to run again, the ones who are retiring probably say, whatever, it doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
But the ones who want to run again, it's a very big deal indeed.
Okay. Yeah, but you are saying, but what's your prediction, or what do you take from these one?
I think, you don't get to be prime minister by being an idiot. You don't get to be president by being an idiot. And, Justin Trudeau, I disapprove of his government. I disagree with many of his policies and his approaches.
Yeah.
But he's not an idiot. He can read a poll like anybody else can.
Yeah.
And the polls have been very clear for more than a year.
Yeah.
For more than a year, the Liberal Party of Canada has been between 15 and 21 points behind Pierre Poilievre. Every single poll.
Yeah.
What does that mean in material terms? That means that they are heading towards one of the biggest political losses in recent Canadian history. Yeah. They are heading towards disaster. And, if it was just a week or two of polling, or, it was an outlier, as we call it, but this is, everybody's saying the same thing, and it's really bad. So Trudeau can read that as much as the next guy and say, I'm not going to be able to beat this. But something else happened this week that I think is relevant, and that is the American debate.
Yes.
All of us watched it. Billions of people watched it.
Yeah.
And every single one of us had the same reaction.
Yes.
We were shocked.
Yes.
We were shocked. I worked for Biden in the last election. Even though I'm a foreign national, I worked the phones for him. I did phone banking. Yeah. And I believe in him, and I have great affection for that man, and I support him. But what I saw on Thursday night shocked me. I think I wrote afterwards, there's probably just one Canadian in all of Canada who's happy to see Joe Biden decline so much. Yeah. And that's Justin Trudeau. I know a little bit about how Canadian voters think. Yeah. And they're sitting there, in the ballot box with their pencil. Yeah. And they're saying, okay, I was going to vote Conservative because I'm mad at Trudeau. Yeah. But now Trump's going to be back in the White House, and I'm worried about NATO. I'm worried about Ukraine. I'm worried about Europe. I'm worried about what life is going to be like again. He's going to be even crazier than before. I think we may need a progressive there. Yeah. It's not going to be Mr. Singh. It'll be Trudeau or whoever is Liberal leader. I think the re-election of Trump does help Liberals. And at this point, Trump is clearly going to win. Yep. Unless Biden steps aside.
Yeah, I need to ask you about the debate. But
sure.
after due to, as you said, everyone is saying this one, Biden was very, very poor, and he lost, it means his mind. He did not know what he was saying, for some things.
It was sad. Yeah. I mean, all of us have got family, and we've seen, our parents or our grandparents get old. Yeah. And you can't deny the truth. Yeah. You see it with your own eyes. You hear it, and anybody who doubts me, just go on the internet and look for videos of Joe Biden in the last debate 4 years ago. Yes. And then look at that man this week. There has clearly been some decline. And I don't know what it is. I'm not a physician. I talked last week, a documentary filmmaker came to my home. And I've got a big Joe Biden poster on the wall, from working for him. And this fellow said to me that his wife was a doctor. And I said, oh. And he said, yeah, my wife thinks that he has Parkinson's. She thinks the president has Parkinson's disease.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, well, he'll do okay. This was before the debate.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, sure. But I still believe, I work for Chrétien. People said the same sort of thing about Chrétien.
Yeah.
They said that he couldn't speak properly.
Mm-hmm.
He was too old.
Yep.
There's something wrong in the head, and he won 3 majorities, right? He's the most popular prime minister.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I like it when politicians that I support are being underestimated.
Mm-hmm.
But then, after the debate, I was like, uh-oh, what if that's true? Something is wrong. And then I went and looked, I Googled
mm-hmm.
symptoms of Parkinson's disease.
Yeah.
Every single thing was there. So I'm not a physician, and
mm-hmm.
I'm not, giving a medical analysis.
Mm-hmm.
But I have my own, I have eyes and I have ears like everybody, and all of us saw it around the world.
Yeah.
There's something wrong. And it's cruel to him because
mm-hmm.
he's a good man. He's a decent man.
Yep.
It is cruel to him
yep.
to require that he run again
mm-hmm.
when he is not up to the, his son just got convicted
yep.
in a court.
Mm-hmm.
His son is facing another prosecution. He's probably in California. He's going to be convicted in that one, I believe, as well.
Yep.
He's lost one son to
mm-hmm.
cancer.
Yep.
He's facing all kinds of challenges.
Yep.
He needs to, I believe, pass the torch
mm-hmm.
to someone else. The problem is, Sami, he's got only 5 weeks to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If he quits today,
yep.
so he listens to you and me and he says, I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
The torch passes, as you know, to Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
That's the 25th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Passes to her.
Yeah.
She's less popular than he is. That's not the solution. So the only way this can be engineered is A, if he agrees with it,
mm-hmm.
he says, okay, I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have something that they haven't had in decades,
yeah.
which is a contested convention.
Yeah.
Where people, as the Democratic Party used to do,
yeah.
put their names forward on the convention floor. Mm-hmm. I think that would be exciting. Yeah. Guys like you and me would be watching every minute of that.
Yeah.
It would be the most exciting show on earth. And I think you would have a lot of people coming back to the Democratic Party because they want Trump to be defeated.
Yeah.
But right now, I wrote this morning, the most powerful person on earth this morning is Jill Biden, mm-hmm. Dr. Jill Biden, his wife.
Yeah.
I think she knows the truth because she lives with him and she loves him.
Yeah.
I think she needs to say to him, honey, I love you, but we can't do this. We have to go home.
Yeah.
It's time to go home. And your guess is as good as mine as to whether that's going to happen.
But do you think it will happen?
That is the question I've gone over in my head 100 times. And, yesterday afternoon, Obama and then Clinton issued tweets saying everybody has a bad day, and I won after. And it's true. If you think of Obama's first debate in 2012 with Mitt Romney, Obama came out and he was kind of like a robot. Mm-hmm. And he just recited statistics and facts, he didn't connect with people. Yeah. And he lost that debate. Mm-hmm. But he changed his course and he became better in the next debate. Yep. In this case, if the problem is physiological, mm-hmm. you can't fix that. There's not a pill you can take. Like, it is what it is. So I think the reason why this morning, I'll confess to you something I haven't told a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I'm really mad at some of Biden's family and some of his senior advisors and some of his friends, because I think they hid this from us. Yep. Like FDR, as you recall, was in a wheelchair. Mm-hmm. And, when he would go to the podium, he wouldn't be in a wheelchair. He'd use a cane. And so the cane would be seen in photographs and people knew he used a cane and they were okay with that. I mean, John F. Kennedy used a cane after he hurt his back in a tree planting ceremony in Ottawa.
Yeah.
But that's different, right? This seems serious. This seems very significant. And, in fairness to him and in fairness to the American people, but also in fairness to the world, NATO, the European Union, the Middle East, trade relations with the United States, for all of those reasons, we need to defeat Trump. Trump is clearly a threat to NATO.
Yes.
He's clearly a threat to normal trade relations with the world. In India, in the Middle East, in Europe, in Canada, wherever there is democracy, I think people are alarmed about what is going to happen to them next year.
Yeah, but sorry, I was not expecting to debate U.S. election, but so there is a third party like Robert Kennedy.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Kennedy. I think it's funny. You mentioned this. I was talking to one local politician this morning, over tea, and he asked me that, and I said, I think Kennedy benefited from not showing up.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens in politics.
Yeah.
Sometimes you win by saying nothing.
Yes.
And I think, there's still lots of people out there who don't want to vote for Trump, but now they're worried about voting for Biden. Yeah. And I think some of those people will go to Kennedy.
But you think he will make a difference? Like maybe he will take some advantages, but with respect to the polls does not show that he is going to win, but Trump's win.
No. Well, I worked with Bobby years ago. I know him. I worked with him on an anti-tobacco campaign. I've done lots of work fighting, tobacco companies. And, he's a smart guy. He's charismatic. He's one of those guys in politics, when they walk into the room, everybody looks at them. They just, have charisma. They've got that thing. But I think something has happened to his philosophy, his politics, and, some of the things that he's said, particularly about healthcare, are just false. They're not true. They're, in some cases, reckless. And, that's the great concern I have about him. My experience with him personally is he's a well-meaning, decent person, but some of his ideas, Sami, are a bit crazy.
Yeah. We have too short time left. I'm not going to jump any other topics.
Yeah.
But I need to your last thoughts on U.S. Presidential debate. Who do you like will take on, and will the Trudeau will remain in the office, or he will be gone soon?
I think so. Here, you can come back and bug me if I'm wrong. But my bet is Trudeau is going to leave. And I know that's a minority opinion. Trudeau says he's not leaving. There's liberals saying he's not leaving. I've got a lot of friends saying he's not leaving. But the friends who are saying that to me are all conservatives. And there's a reason why, in politics, it's a big mistake to confuse your hopes for reality. They hope he will leave because he is their best friend.
Yeah.
As long as Justin Trudeau is there, they know they're going to win. And the mistake I think they made is they don't, as far as I know, they don't have a plan B. They don't have the one thing I learned in law school, probably the only thing I learned in law school, always ask the question in law and in politics, what if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
What if I'm wrong? And what if you guys are wrong, conservatives, and Justin Trudeau leaves? What's your plan then?
Yeah.
They haven't talked about Dominic LeBlanc or, Champagne or Christy Clark. They haven't talked about any of those people. It looks like they don't have a plan. So I think he is going to go because he's not stupid. Yeah. And I think if he does go, it's, going to get tighter. Yeah. It's not going to be 21 points anymore. Yeah. On the U.S. side, so you want me to make a prediction?
Please.
Again, you get to come back to me and go after me if I get it wrong. I think there's just too many big names in the United States of America, most powerful nation on earth, saying to him, and these are people who love him. These are people who like him. They admire him. They respect him. They're not enemies.
Yep.
Saying, you have to go. We cannot lose to someone. If it was any of his opponents, Rubio or Haley or anybody, but he's so clearly, the one thing I said to a journalist this morning, this journalist was saying to me, Biden declined in the past 4 years. And I said, yeah, but so did Trump. Trump's even crazier than before. So, he must be defeated for democracy, for the safety of civilization.
Mm-hmm.
So my hope is, here's my bet. I'm leaning towards them working out a solution with Biden, because you and I are talking on Saturday. The debate is less than 48 hours old.
Yes.
The polling has only started.
Mm-hmm.
I predict to you next week, there's going to be some polls that are going to be a disaster for the Democratic Party.
Yep.
And they're not just a disaster for Biden, because the way it works in the United States, because I've worked on US campaigns, most voters there, they call it up and down the ticket.
Yep.
So they just go into the polling booth and they vote for president Democrat, governor Democrat, senator Democrat, congressman Democrat. That's what up and down the ticket means, because their ballots, it's got everybody on the same thing. And Biden now hurts those other candidates. So they're all going to be saying, we love you, but you've got to go.
Yes.
So my prediction to you is Trudeau is going to decide, I've got to go, and then it'll become more competitive. And I think Biden will be reluctant, but he'll hear from enough people to know he's got to go. Okay. So there you go. 2 predictions for our conversation.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is that good? Was that all right?
Yeah, it was great. And thank you.
Okay. And I apologize about my dog in the middle.
No. Sir,
but dogs don't know very much about podcasts.
Sir, please, you don't need to apologize. I need to apologize to you to bothering you. You are a great journalist.
No,
thing to do, but you took time for me personally. That is obligation. It is an honor and privilege for me that you are appearing on Sami Parvez Show.
It's an honor and privilege for me that you invited me, and I look forward to us talking again to see how my predictions turned out.
Okay, so I need to wait until there is something comes up, and then I need to invite you. Sometime
in the next few months, I think you and I will be talking again.
Okay, sure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Take care. Happy Canada Day.
Okay, happy Canada Day. Thank you, Sami.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.